Welcome back to the Nourished Fertility Podcast, your go-to podcast to restore your fertility and get pregnant. I'm your host, Victoria Myers, period loss expert, functional fertility dietitian, and owner of the virtual coaching practice, Nourished Fertility, where my team and I work with you to restore your fertility. Today on the podcast, I am sharing with you a section of a live training I hosted back in early August. I wanted to share this particular part of the training here on the Nourished Fertility podcast because truly I don't think I've ever had a conversation on some of the most basic foundational steps of the way that we practice with our clients. So if you've ever wondered what it may feel like and look like to work with us to restore your fertility and finally get pregnant after years of trying, this episode is for you. It's to help you understand what these 5 foundations are, no matter what your infertility journey looks like. If that you have period loss from hypothalamic amenorrhea, or you have irregular cycles from PCOS, now called PMOS, if it's from unexplained infertility, low AMH, POI, whatever is going on in your infertility, these are the 5 foundations that support ovulation and support your body's ability to get and stay pregnant, no matter if you get pregnant naturally or you're setting yourself up for IVF success. These 5 foundations are a necessity for everyone going through their fertility journey right now. So without further ado, let's jump into these 5 foundations from our training back in early August. Enjoy. At this point, you know that information, it is not what you were missing anymore. You already know more about your fertility than you ever expected to. You've read the books, you've listened to the podcast, you're eating all the right foods, you've adjusted your exercise like cutting back on cardio, you've researched every lab value and treatment option. Again, you know more about fertility than you ever thought you would. The missing piece now is knowing what applies to your body and having support to implement it consistently. With that shared, I want to walk you through the 5 foundations we use in our practice to support ovulation and fertility. Because your personalized investigation, it shows us where your body needs the most support. And then we use this 5-step methodology to reignite, replenish, regulate, repair, and restore. Let's dig in. Step number 1 is to reignite your metabolism. Your metabolism is the foundation for every system in the body. To put it simply, it's how efficiently your body takes raw material from food and turns it into energy. This energy is then required for every system in the body, including reproduction. When energy availability or metabolic function is disrupted or damaged, the body conserves resources by disrupting hormone production and ovarian signaling. This is why it is so crucial to look beyond just how much you're eating and ask better questions moving forward. Questions like, how efficiently is your metabolism functioning? Is your body receiving enough usable energy? Is your blood sugar stable? Is your thyroid functioning optimally? And is your metabolism still adapting to years of underfueling and dieting? Some red flags, some signs and symptoms that this may be true for you, that you do currently have some metabolic damage and your metabolism needs to be reignited, is that you have really low basal body temperatures. As you're checking your basal body temperature every morning for fertility tracking, you're pretty consistently in the low 97s or even lower than that. You may actually feel that too, like you're freezing cold all the time, even in the summer, even when everyone else is totally fine around you. You were so cold. You may wake up really consistently between 2 and 4 a.m. most nights. You have frequent headaches and you may even experience migraines. Other red flags of metabolic damage and disruption is that you have a lot of blood sugar instability, and what that physically feels like in your body is that you are on a roller coaster ride. Maybe you have a lot of energy, especially earlier in the morning or when you first wake up, but then as the day goes on or even after meals, you have this complete crash and you feel so fatigued and so exhausted. In the afternoons and evening especially, you really struggle with energy levels. And if you have any issues with your cycle, from a missing or unpredictable cycle to missing or weak ovulation, short luteal phases, light, short bleeds, spotting before your period. These are all signals to me that there's metabolic damage that we need to correct in order to fix your fertility. But of course, we want to look at signs and symptoms, or really look beyond signs and symptoms, and also look at the data. Data is so important so that we aren't just like guessing at what is going on with your metabolism. We have clear, specific information so that the custom protocol that we create is so handcrafted to exactly what your body is telling us that it needs. Metabolic markers that we look at in our practice are a variety of different markers, but they include blood glucose markers, insulin. It includes a metabolic marker that we test for on a test called a hair tissue mineral analysis, or an H2A. And then we also look at your full thyroid panel, not just TSH, to assess your metabolic health. Allison got to experience this for herself. Allison was a psychologist in her 30s, came to us with a PCOS diagnosis, but her symptoms, her hormone patterns, and history did not neatly fit into one explanation or neatly even fit really into PCOS. Our investigation revealed a pattern of more than a decade without consistent ovulation, 10 plus years of period loss, a history of underfueling and high exercise demands, thyroid and metabolic adaptations. And through this investigation, we created a personalized protocol to her exact needs, supported her, and held her hand through every step of the process. Within 4 weeks, she experienced her first ovulatory period and then went on. She actually came to me a year before she was actively trying to conceive, went on to have ovulatory cycles. In the first month she tried, she got pregnant. Step number 2 is to replenish nutrients. Healthy hormone production, ovulation, egg development, uterine health, and early pregnancy demands all require adequate nutritional building blocks. This includes magnesium, copper, zinc, vitamin A, selenium, vitamin D, and iron. And I know that you are already thinking to yourself, I eat super healthy. I eat all the fertility friendly foods. I can't possibly need to replenish nutrients. I'm not only eating healthy, but I'm taking all the supplements like prenatals and CoQ10 that I'm supposed to be taking. But there's some signs and symptoms that this may not actually be true for you. Number one, if you eating super healthy actually means that you're eating as low calorie as possible, or maybe as restrictive as you've done in the past, or you currently are. For example, you eat a lot of protein and vegetables, but you don't prioritize other macronutrients or micronutrients. You maybe eat vegan or vegetarian, or you have a very limited diet. And again, it's actually pretty low calorie. You may even have food sensitivities or specific food groups you avoid, such as gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free, and more. And if you are an avid exerciser and you are someone who exercises especially to deal with the stress in your life, you may actually be depleting nutrients far faster than you realize. If you have brittle hair and nails, you get sick or injured frequently. And again, any issues with your cycle, from a missing period for years and years to lack of ovulation to weak ovulation, meaning you have very low progesterone levels after ovulation, you have low basal body temperature, short, light bleeds, if you have spotting before your cycle, short luteal phases. Again, these are all signals to me that there's a nutrient deficiency that has to be corrected in order to fix your fertility. As is true with every one of these 5 foundational steps to restore your fertility, we want to test. We don't want to guess at what your body needs when it comes to both a nutrition strategy, but also your supplement strategy as well. Megan got to experience this for herself. So Megan was a great example of like when eating more is not the whole answer. She had period loss for 5+ years and actually had a few recovery cycles on her own before she came to work with us. However, she came to work with us because she was still not ovulating or getting pregnant. Our investigation connected her cycle, ovulation history, blood nutrient markers, mineral patterns, hormone production. And what we identified in her case, which we see time and time again, is that she has some pretty severe nutrient deficiencies that we had to correct in order to restore her fertility. She needed targeted nutrition replenishment to support hormone signaling and ovarian functioning. Megan, when she came to us and through that investigation, got the plan that was finally built around what her body specifically needed. And then we supported her every step of the way. And what she experienced was that in the third month of the program, she confirmed ovulation for the first time in over 5 years, but her period never returned because she was pregnant. Her breakthrough was not a perfect diet, it was a targeted replenishment, a personalized plan, and support through every decision. Up next, step number 3 in our 5 foundations, regulate your nervous system. I bet you've heard that term before. Actually, I bet you've heard it a lot, nervous system regulation. It's really popular in the health and wellness and even in the fertility spaces now. And when we're referencing regulating your nervous system, what we're actually talking about is the ability for your autonomic nervous system to appropriately move in between its two modes. Your sympathetic, which is your fight or flight, and your parasympathetic, which is your rest and digest. Just as we can see with this balancing teeter, we want balance and to be able to appropriately move between both modes. That is what nervous system regulation is all about. And I know when I say nervous system regulation, you're wondering to yourself, oh my gosh, does this mean she's going to ask me to quit my job and to avoid every challenge? Like I'm a person who loves to be challenged or to meditate for hours upon end. And I promise you, that is not in any way what we mean by nervous system regulation. It does not mean that you need to live a stress-free life. What it actually means is building the ability, the capacity to activate, get into fight or flight when life requires it, recover, move into rest and digest when the demand has passed, and also that your body is overall regulated, even though it's going to move into, again, fight or flight when warranted. You can sleep deeply, you can rest without guilt, which I know is so hard for you. And most importantly, you can build stress resilience. You have the capacity to handle the stressors in your life. Right now, you may feel like you're on the top or even the bottom of a huge wave in a hurricane in the middle of the ocean. When we're at the top, it feels like we're so anxious all the time and that every little small thing that happens in our life is sending us over the edge. But then when we're at the very bottom, it's when we feel like we're almost stuck in freeze mode, that we can't appropriately move into fight or flight. We're so overwhelmed, we're so paralyzed, we're so exhausted that we feel like we're having a huge hurricane wave crash upon us at all times. A better way to live your life and what can happen through the right tools that we teach in our program is that a nervous system regulated body feels like you are on a calm ocean. That, yeah, you have these little dips and rises, but you have capacity for them. And they don't feel like these huge swings, like these huge waves crashing over you over and over again. And also, I bet there's some of you here, someone watching this who's like, I don't feel stressed at all. I don't feel like I have this large wave that I'm on top of it or it's crashing over me. But here's some examples of what feeling stressed can look like. And I wanted to include this slide because this was me. If you would have asked me a decade ago, I would have told you, I'm not stressed out. I got this. But in reality, I was far more stressed than I had ever realized. Some examples of being stressed, even when it doesn't feel like you are, is trying harder, controlling every detail, researching endlessly, becoming frustrated when your body does not respond. It can look like staying constantly busy, exercising to manage anxiety, jumping from one protocol and experiment to the next. Or it could even look like for you feeling paralyzed about IVF, avoiding another appointment, becoming so overwhelmed that you cannot make one more decision in your life, especially given that you are someone who makes so many decisions every day of your life, in your household, in your job, that making one more decision about your fertility is going to send you over the edge. This is what stress really does look like, especially when it comes to fertility. Here's an example of that. Olivia was someone where her discipline was keeping her stuck. Her assessment showed a pattern of high internal pressure and difficulty resting, exercise as a way to manage anxiety, and specifically, her lab showed us that she had mental patterns consistent with burnout in the final alarm stage. This is when your body, we call it fast 4, is in such a significant state of stress that it cannot keep up. We call it the final alarm stage. For this, we built her a plan around both nervous system resilience as well as nourishment. And her success, she got pregnant by the time she was done working with us. Her success did not come from lowering her ambition. It came from giving her body the support and recovery it had been missing. Step number 4, repair your gut. If you're wondering, like, why are you talking about like my gut right now as we're talking about ovulation and hormones and fertility? Here's why. You can eat the right foods and take all the right supplements, which I bet you already are, but your body still has to be able to digest, absorb, and use them properly. Your digestive system, it helps to determine whether the nutrients required for metabolism, hormone production, ovulation, and pregnancy are actually available to your body. This is why we need to look beyond what you're eating and again, ask better questions. Are you digesting food effectively? Are you absorbing the nutrients that you consume? Is inflammation interfering with that process? Is your intestinal lining functioning well? And is an infection or dysbiosis creating additional stress? Some signs and symptoms that this may be true for you is that you are experiencing quite a bit of digestive discomfort. You have a lot of bloating, a lot of abdominal discomfort, constipation or diarrhea, reflux or nausea. You feel overly full after meals. You may even have food sensitivities, and that could even be why you eat gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free, etc. But I think it's important to know that you don't have to have actual digestive symptoms in order to need gut repair. Some other clues that this may be true for you is low ferritin, which we see so frequently in our practice, as well as recurring iron issues, nutrient levels that remain low despite supplementation, hair loss or brittle nails, fatigue or poor recovery, and difficulty tolerating enough food. Some other signs as well is chronic inflammation. You feel inflamed at all times, you have frequent illness, and even skin concerns such as psoriasis, eczema, and acne all point to the need for gut repair. This is why, as is true with all 5 foundations in our foundational steps for restoring fertility, we have to test and we have to look at the data to see exactly what's going on because it's going to be so personal to your body and what your body has going on. Again, your fertility is as unique to you as your fingerprint, including what's going on with your digestive health. Here's an example of just that. Katie was in her late 30s, had actually already had 2 pregnancies and 2 beautiful babies by the time she came to work with us, but had had years of period loss prior. She needed some fertility support to get pregnant with her first 2 and had completely lost her period as she was trying to conceive with her third. She also, though, was having a ton of symptoms outside of just lack of ovulation and lack of cycle. She was having extreme histamine reactions. She was having hives all the time and some extreme blood sugar instability. I mean, she could feel it every single time she ate that she was like crashing and burning. We did a gut test. It's a stool sample test called a GI map. And what we found blew our minds. She had an overgrowth of opportunistic bacteria that's like the bad guys in your gut in every category of high histamine creating bacteria. No wonder she was having the blood sugar crashes and the histamine response she was having. She got her cycle back within 4 weeks, and we are now continuing to work with her to not only continue having ovulatory cycles, but to get pregnant and now also to manage the histamine and the gut symptoms that she's experiencing so that she can truly feel well and actually truly restore her fertility. Okay, the final step in our 5 foundations to support ovulation and fertility, and that's to restore healthy hormones. I want you to think of your hormones, your hormone production, as a table with 4 legs: your metabolic health, your nutrient status, your nervous system, and your gut health are all the legs of the table. Your hormone production is a result of metabolic safety, nutrition, nervous system regulation, and a healthy gut. But what happens when one of the legs is wobbly or it's broken or it's missing entirely? That's going to affect the entire foundation and it's going to affect how your body is able to produce hormones. Hormonal changes, hormone production is truly the final domino to fall. This is why you have maybe been told what is going on, but no one has told you why, because no one's looking at these preceding steps, the foundations of your fertility, as to why you have such low or imbalanced hormones, why you're struggling with infertility. Again, hormonal changes are the final domino to fall. Some signs and symptoms that this may be true for you is that you have low estrogen, low progesterone, imbalanced LH to FSH. Your LH is higher than your FSH. Maybe you have a really elevated FSH as well. You have elevated testosterone. We'll talk more about labs just here in the next slide, though. Some other signs would be thin uterine lining, low libido, very short or light bleeding, spotting before your period, short luteal phases, anything less than 11 days, and ovulatory bleeding, which means you have a cycle, but you are never getting confirmed ovulation. You have no positive OPKs when you do your kits at home, little to no fertile cervical mucus, no sustained rise in your basal body temperature, ovulation that occurs late or inconsistently, or again, not at all. You maybe have long follicular phases or missing or unpredictable periods. Some surprising clues that this is true for you, as well as frequent urination, waking up to pee every night between 2 to 4 a.m., constipation and bloating, as well as brittle hair and nails. Now, when it comes to labs, this is probably the only area where your doctor has probably ordered some of these labs. Even if you've done extensive fertility testing, we have never found, at least at this point in time, for the fertility specialists and the doctors we work with to order the extensive amount of labs that we order. But they probably have ordered some of the hormones at least, and you maybe have seen these and now understand why you need to see so much more than just your hormones. But to be a little bit more specific about like what does low or imbalanced hormones look like, number one, we want to look for optimal for fertility, not just normal. But what that may mean is that you have an estrogen below 50. If you are cycling, that'd be day 3 of your cycle. And could have, an estrogen of 10, of 22. You may have really low progesterone levels. We see that all the time in our practice. You maybe have really downregulated thyroid production. Maybe you have thyroid antibodies and your body's attacking your thyroid, and you have high thyroid antibodies indicating Hashimoto's. Maybe you have elevated testosterone, and the way that your body is coping with the metabolic damage, the nutrient depletion, and the need for nervous system support and gut support is actually that you're creating too much testosterone. Or in your case, it may be an elevated LH to FSH ratio. Your LH is 2 to 3 times higher than your FSH. We even see sometimes an elevated FSH in contrast to the LH. All of these, an elevated TSH, all of these point us to that there is something going on beneath the surface that needs to be dug deeper. Yes, we can see something's going on with your hormones, but again, what are the steps preceding that then led to that? Here's an example of that. Amy's story is one where low hormones were a surface level clue. She was an ER nurse and she had the marriage, the house, the career that she wanted, but her body was not cooperating. She could not get pregnant because she had not ovulated in years. Her investigation showed very low estrogen, inconsistent brain to ovary signaling, low iron availability, thyroid and metabolic adaptations, nutrient and mineral needs, and high stress and high inflammation. You can see some of these labs here. Rather than treating each finding separately, we built one personalized plan around the full picture. And as a result of that and the support she received from our team, her first recovery period returned within 8 weeks. During her time with us, she not only restored her fertility by getting ovulatory cycles back and consistent, improving hormone production, but she rebuilt her nutrient foundation and gained confidence in her body and that it was fertile. 1 week after completing her 6 months of support with our team, she sent us this message that she was pregnant. Lauren was a business owner. Her cycles remained inconsistent. She had a PCOS diagnosis, but also was like a very active person and who really spent a lot of her years dieting. She was told really conflicting advice too from her practitioner. She's actually someone who saw a naturopath who told her to go low carb and to try HIIT exercises because of her PCOS diagnosis. But our assessment connected her nutrition, her exercise demands, her low hormone production, her nutrient needs, and disrupted ovulation. And because of that, we were able to build a protocol, support her. By the end of her time with us, she had restored her fertility, having ovulatory cycles, and then went on to get pregnant easily. Emma was a former athlete. Her cycles were inconsistent, and yet when she went to the doctor, she was told all her labs looked normal, that the only option moving forward was to move forward with a fertility specialist and to go see an REI, a reproductive endocrinologist. Our assessment revealed instead that her hormone production was still not optimal for conception. We supported her metabolism, nutrients, stress response, and hormone production. And by the end of our program, she'd received the positive pregnancy test she'd been waiting for. Gianna is the story of healing secondary infertility. She lost her cycle after having her first, and her doctors, her fertility specialists, were unsure how to help her. We did our 5 foundations with her, as we do with every client in our practice, and she got her period back and went on to get pregnant. Ellen is another example of just that. Her PCOS diagnosis and insulin resistance made her fear that she'd never get pregnant. And she, yes, was able to get pregnant and to have the baby she'd always dreamed of. Thank you so much for watching this episode. And if after watching today's episode, you are ready to move forward and you want to apply to work with us inside of the Nourish Fertility Method, we have updated and really transformed our program that was once called Premier Peer Recovery for Fertility. It is now a 6-month program, and it now includes far more extensive functional fertility lab testing, and it is now called the Nourish Fertility Method. So if this is what you're looking for to finally restore your fertility and get pregnant, we are taking applications to work with us now in September and October, and you can find the link to apply and schedule a decision-making call with me to see if it's a good fit in our show notes. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. I'll see you back in a couple of weeks.